All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm here in Studio B. I'll be here for a couple of days. A couple of ways. I'm in the wrong spot here. I want to be down here, but I was checking on something. I need methinks I need a calendar, or I want a calendar. I'm doing a clean lunar month for this, but I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if it'll be. I don't know if it'll be. What's the word I'm looking for? If I don't, I'm wondering if I can make it, if it's doable without. Do I need to do a full 2-page spread to get the calendar in there, or can I get the calendar? Can I get a calendar in here with on one side of a page? I suppose I'm gonna find out. I need. Let's just see what one looks like. Just using a table for right now. That would seem to be, I don't know. I need 7 times for 1 month, right? I'm doing lunar months. So I need weeks and days. I don't know if doing it in an actual table is going to be worthwhile. Well, let me just see. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to need one more. How does this work? There we go. 7. I feel like if I'm going to do this right, it needs to be, I'm going to have to draw it out more graphically. I think, right? Hey, Ian. I decided that for so in case you just missed my spiel a minute ago, well, dual spiel, as you may be able to tell, I'm in Studio B up in the country. It looks like it's getting ready to storm and rain outside. And I was thinking yesterday, I want to have a calendar. And I'm thinking about the best way to do it. Not super, I say not too designy, simply I'm not a super great design person. I was thinking at first I could do it just using a table, but now I'm thinking that's not going to do. That won't do. So I'm going to get rid of that. I think I'm going to switch to, let's go to the designer persona. Oh, I need to update. Oh, because I'm on a different computer. All right, I need to update those. All right, so let me see if I can do that in the background while I'm doing other things. Hey, Brian. If you haven't go to the forums and check out Brian's post. He did an update with his encounter stuff layout. Really, really nice looking. And Brian, I know I need to get back to you about our business, and I will do that. I will do that. Also, tomorrow, so a couple things. I am in the Corner Pocket Studio for, yes, that's the way to put it. Yes, I am. Hey, Brother Malachi. Oh, you know what? I should turn off. Yeah, I should turn off the top light because, yes, it is bright. Hold on a second. All right. It's actually making me sweat a bit. Okay. It's still kind of bright, but at least now I have more control over the lights. I can dim that down a bit more. Happiness and gratitude. Well, I'll take that too. But it was I forget sometimes with all the lights on, it gets kind of warm. It gets a little bit warm in here. Hopefully it's not too buzzy in the background. I've got a fan that I put basically as far away as I can, but still have the air flow reach me. And it might be, if there's a low rumble at times, that's probably what that is. So we haven't been up here in a stretch, or I haven't been up here in a little while, not too long. And of course, as soon as we leave, like all the wildlife comes out to play. Spiders making tons of webs everywhere, and the mice are back. And you know, these mice, I don't know if all field mice are like this, but these mice are both very bold, and they seem to be about as smart as a box of rocks. I mean, I was upstairs, real actually above this room is where the living room is, and I'm sitting in there this morning about 11 a.m. And it's light outside. I've got the light on. I don't think the TV was on. I was looking at something, and I just see this field mouse just cruises on by, not a care in the world. I'm thinking, what? And so I go and I get up, and it's taken its time. I even took a picture because at one point it was up against the wall, and it was just in a spot where I try to be humane. I'm not really, I have some kill traps out only because I just haven't found, I have a catch alive trap that they never seem to go into. And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but I also have a couple of kill traps that have been more successful. Oh yeah, there's thundering outside now. I hate to do it, but they just keep coming. They keep coming. And so this one's up against the wall and it's looking at me. Now you guys haven't seen the living room. It's a little bit of eclectic setup, and there are definitely nooks and crannies there for it to get behind things that make it not easy to get to it. And it's kind of back in one of those areas. And at one point, it's just looking at me, and then and I'm like clapping my hands. I'm like, hey, like there's a back, there's actually a door into the house there. So I was kind of hoping maybe I could get it to kind of scare it, but the thing would not scare, it was not scared of me at all. I did end up kind of sort of driving it, and I put the one little trap there, and I was hoping it'd go into this non-kill trap. Yeah. And speaking for the mouse, says, howdy, Todd, right outside. Got any cheese? Yeah, well, so here's the thing, right? So that mouse, I'm not sure where that mouse is, but I have two traps there waiting for one, which I hope it goes into, which is a trap that will not kill it. Just it sends it into a thing. It's basically got like a one-way trap door kind of thing, and it goes in and it'll get stuck, and I can take it outside. The only other trap I had, which I put in another spot, is a kill trap. I'm hoping it goes for the nice one, not the bad one, but I can't have them. They're just not hygienic. I mean, not hygienic. Can't have it. Can't have these field mice around. So I came into the basement. I came in here, and down here, there's basically two rooms. The room that I am in, and then there's a room next door. The room next door has got like storage. There's like kind of older stuff in there. It's got a washer, clothes washer and dryer and just stuff. And it's not particularly well kept. Some of that's my fault. Some of that is just all this kind of leftover stuff from my grandmother. And at one point there are pipes, the water pipes, and we'd had a leak a little while back. So I'd put a bucket underneath where this leak was coming from. It only came when we tried to run a bath, like not the shower, but the bath. I don't know what it was about the bath part, but the bath started this leak. So we haven't been taking baths, just taking showers. That's fine. And so this bucket was down there, and I hear like puka puka, puka puka, and I'm thinking like, is there another leak? Is something going on? Because it sounds. I mean, it sounds like something like water. It sounds like water hitting the bucket. Puka puka, puka puka. And where the bucket is it's a big sort of open room. It would be if it were empty. For empty, it'd be just a big open room. But there's the dryer is kind of up against a support beam. An exposed support beam, load bearing, I presume, and the bucket's kind of behind there, so you can't really see it. You have to sort of maneuver around, and there's some other stuff. It's like behind there, and I see two things. And I should have taken a picture of it because I couldn't. It just shocked me. I was shocked. So one, I see what looks to be like a dead. It must have been a rat, dead rat. And and I assume it's a rat because where the little field mice, they're kind of compact and they have a long mouse tail. This one was long, but also a long tail. It's clearly dead. It's dead. It's laying there on the floor, and there's a little mouse that's just attached to it. And I thought, like, this is something out of like did they? And I'm looking at him, and again, I'm it's the first thing I see. I haven't even looked in the bucket yet, but I see this rat that's clearly dead, and then attached to it is this little mouse. Mouse isn't moving. I presume that the mouse is dead too, because they're just sitting there like they were in some kind of. And I know that rats will attack mice, so I don't know. I don't know what happens. We have life or death struggle between this rat and this mouse, and they both died. The rat and nothing smelled. Like I have a dehumidifier. So I don't know. And now I don't know, but it had all its fur on, and it wasn't like bones. But we're in this closed area, and it didn't seem to be any insects around. So I'm looking at that, but still there's that. So they're right. This scene, this I need to call ASPCA, CSI to come in. So we have this crime scene here, double homicide, or perhaps a homicide. I don't know what do you want to call it. And then there's the bucket. So then I'm like, I'm just captivated by the scene, but I didn't take a picture of it. Shame on me. I look over and I'm like, okay, so that's happened. But what's in the bucket? And there's another one of these little idiotic field mice in the bucket who seems to be, maybe they got in. It seems like they're in it and they can't really get out of it, or they're doing something. And the bucket's completely empty. It's dry. Because I thought at first, I'm looking at this field mouse and maybe I'm thinking like, is there water in the bucket? Was it trying to get because maybe there's some just whatever. Like, no, the bucket is bone dry and it's just like in the bucket. And, and I'm looking at that and I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, oh, so the thing's in the bucket. So I have another kind of just some kind of plastic, like drip tray kind of things. So I put the tray over the bucket and I take the bucket outside. I go across the street because there's a big field and I just go, just fling it open. The little mouse goes flying out into the grass, and I'm hoping it's not going to come back. It probably will. I don't have the time or the effort to go drive miles away. Okay, I don't want to kill it, so I don't really know what to do. I'll need to look up some kind of solution if I catch this again. Oh, Brian says that buckets with a little water are common rodent traps. Interesting. Well, maybe that's a good. Well, maybe I'll use that. So now I've at least temporarily disposed of the mouse. And I don't know if there's, obviously we see one mouse, you're thinking, well, how many mice are there? Is there a whole nest of mice in here? Is it 3? But now there's at least 2 mice that I've seen, assuming that the one that upstairs isn't the same mouse, because there was a time gap. I don't know. But now I'm looking, I come back in here and I'm thinking, okay, I got these 2 corpses here. I'm going to take them, basically shovel them into something, and I don't know, take them outside, walk a little bit in the woods and dump them. That was my thinking. Right or wrong, I don't know. That's what I was going to do. So I go to, there's just a mop, not a mop, a broom, and I just have that same kind of drip tray. And I'm just going to shove them in the drip tray. Well, when I shove the rat, which is dead, this mouse goes, and it detaches itself from the rat. The mouse wasn't dead. It was eating the dead rat. Gross. So now I'm like trying to, and these mice, they're, they can be tricky when they move around, but these mice are, I don't know what they are. They're lethargic. Which is good for me. They're slow. They don't really know what they're doing. It doesn't seem like, they're crazy like a fox. You lay these traps out, and the traps are, chances of actually catching the trap seems to be next to nil no matter how smart you think you are. But on the other hand, I'm just kind of hitting it with this broom, and it's just tumbling over. And so I'm able to kind of finally muscle it into this tray. And I also just take it outside. And now this tray, so when I took the other one out in the bucket was deep. So like it couldn't really, and I kind of moved it around a little bit, but it never had the wherewithal to, make a jump. Hey, Suisse. Never had the wherewithal to make a jump. So it's just in the bucket. But this tray, it's only, it's got the walls of the tray are an inch or two high. So I start kind of like I'm flipping pancakes. I'm just flipping this thing, and then the mouse is going eep, 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 eep every time I flip it. So I'm flipping it, walking, flipping it, walking, flip. So I get outside, flip, 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 go across. I flip it again, and it goes, head over heels in the air, lands in the grass. So I go over to it, and the thing's just looking at me. It's staring at me in the grass. So I go inside, and I get the rat. Slide the rat on the tray. I go, and I could see that there's like a little hole. And I don't know if this is where the mouse was getting, but there's like it's a hole. Just like, there's it's skin and fur, and then there's just a hole, like someone sliced it and it just got to peel open a little bit. And I don't know if that's where the mouse was just sticking its face. I don't know. So I dispose of the rat, and I decided, well, let me go back and look in the grass. And sure enough, that mouse is still there. And it's just looking at me. And I'm like trying to like, hey, like, why don't you go? Move. Hello, let's go. I'm stomping my feet around, and it just does not care for me at all. So I left it there. And then I went and got lunch. When I drove back, I see a mouse suspiciously trying to up against the side of the house. I'm presuming it's one of those mice. I don't know where the mice are getting in. I've said this many times. This is an old house. I think it's probably, to mice and such things, it's probably exceedingly easy for them to get in. So I did go and I got some more traps and I got some poison, which I hate to do, but I can't have the mice. I can't have the mice. I can't do it. I'd love to be able to find a way to do it non-lethally. And if I can catch them, I will take them outside. But if they will not keep an understanding of the borders of these lands. Outside, that's theirs. I cede control. Inside is mine. And they're not honoring these agreements. Yeah, I need to get a lacrosse stick. You totally could. I was wondering, because I know my daughter we had a fishing net up here. I was like, can I get a net and just net the thing? There's the one that was upstairs, who I'm more concerned about because it's in our living kind of quarters. You couldn't, a lacrosse stick would be too big to get in there. It's like in between the wall. Then we have sort of a shelves and just, you couldn't get it in. That one I got to kind of get out into the open, and then I could try to scoop it or like throw it. I get out the door. But they're not smart. I mean, way back in the day, I've had issues with mice before. Before I met my wife and got married and moved, I lived in an apartment. They call them garden apartments. They're on the ground floor. Garden might have a back side, a little bit of a backyard type situation, but they're on the ground floor. Essentially, you're talking like in walk-up type buildings. So brownstones. We've seen pictures of brownstones, things like that. Well, I lived in one. And there was construction next door. And whenever you have these construction where they're demolishing or doing work, it drives all the critters to wherever else they can get. So I'm right next door. So so I had issues with critters, and I'm in Brooklyn. So in not only were there rats, but there were also mice. And I had like a mouse problem. And the same thing, I'd be sitting there watching TV and see this little guy scurrying across, just looking at me. And I'm like, what are you doing, pal? So I was, we recycle, and I had some boxes that I had broken down, and they were by this back door that I had that went into the yard. And I had them broken down, just kind of sitting there. And this mouse comes out, and I'm chewing it, and and it gets into those boxes. So I'm like, oh, great. So the boxes are stacked. They're laying flat, not stacked vertically, but horizontally. So I opened the back door, and I start kind of hitting, like knocking the boxes, like kicking the boxes, hitting the boxes with my foot, thinking like I'm gonna like make some pressure. It's gonna push it out. It's gonna running out there. But I'm looking, and nothing's happening. It turned out I killed the mouse. Stepping on the boxes, I stepped on the mouse. But I kind of feel like, mouse, what are you doing? I gave you an escape. I'm just trying to I'm not trying to like stamp hard on it. I wasn't like, ha ha ha, crush it. I'm really trying to hit one side of the boxes so that it will feel a little bit and then move, and it just didn't. It didn't move. I don't know. I don't know what it is. These field mice, they're. I gained an XP. Yeah. How many? What fraction of a hit die did that mouse have? Sui says it must be a sentient non-NPC mouse. Could be. See, the thing is, here's the tragedy of Brian. I have cats, and they are terrible mousers. I don't know if just because they've been in all their lives, they are terrible. Absolutely terrible. So the upshot of all this is the cats aren't here with me this trip, but they have been with me in the past, and it's not good. They're not good at it. They don't know what to do. At one time, in fact, it was funny. We're all basically downstairs. We're sitting there's a table right here, and the door to come in this area is right here. This mouse comes out of the door, comes in. Both my cats are there. The mouse comes out because this is an old. I keep saying it's an old house, and it's not old in an antique sense. It's just old. So you have doors that they don't seal well. I mean, some of the outside doors, a mouse could probably just, because I know mice and rats both can really compress themselves. I mean, there's a door behind me out here to go out that's, I think, has cracks big enough for them to get through if they want to. So, I mean, part of this is kind of a fool's errand. I just need to try to keep some kind of, I can't let them get too comfortable. I guess I got to keep hoping that the old ones stay out and then the new ones give me some reprieve. In any case, this inside door also has like a big, anything can walk through. So this thing just walks out through the door. It's the middle of the day. We got the bright light over our heads. 2 cats are standing there. It looks at us. We're all looking at it, including my 2 cats, and it just turned around and walked back underneath. And my cats didn't do anything. Let it happen. I need to include some mouse-related stuff. I probably should. I'm looking up right now. I'm trying to get this affinity stuff. If I can get, my affinity updated so I can do this in Designer. What I want to do is make a kind of a calendar. I don't really want to do it. I was thinking about doing it in a table, and it just doesn't seem like I can format it the way I'd like to in a table. So I'm trying to see if I can do this. But let me see if I can get. Affinity's great, but you have to log into their store kind of thing, and I don't know all the passwords by heart, or it's just one, but still, I don't know. Let's see. That work? No, it says it doesn't work. Let me see. One other thing. Otherwise, I'll give it up and I'll do something else. I don't want to get sidetracked too much. I should come up with something. I should probably make like a joke. Something. Oh, maybe it's. Oh, you know what? Hold on a minute. I might have. Yeah, this might work. All right, let me see if this works, and I can at least get the update started. If I can. I think they were having a sale. I should see if they'll allow partnerships. Not that I'm big enough to get any partnerships, but Affinity, they really do nice things, and I highly recommend it. It's not free, but it's real. I guess what I mean by it's real is God bless people and the kind of hacks I see that folks will do to do things, all kinds of crazy stuff to create materials, but it seems like a real pain in the butt. All right, let's see if this worked. It did work. All right, cool. I don't need photo right now. I can update photo later. So I'm doing, I just want to do, oh, I don't want black or white and white. Thank you. I want to do white. Get this look. Give me a, I think 2 points. You know, once I have this, I can. So let me see. How do you think this would go? I need to scroll on. So what I need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me see. One thing that, there we go. One thing I've noticed, it'd be hard to align things when they have strokes because, and I know there are different ways. I guess it'll also do with where you have the stroke come in, because I find sometimes you get it where the lines are slightly thicker where the objects are meeting, and I know you could set it so that the strokes are on the outside or the inside so that the borders of things line up, but I find sometimes that it's tricky. Oh boy, Suisse. So it's been a while. Yes. So this is the sort of micro setting for my way overdue zine, and then I'll be working on. It's called the Valley of the Seven Sisters, and it's essentially these 7. And if you go back and you look at a bunch of these working streams I've been doing over the past couple of weeks now, this is pretty much what I've been working on. So it's got I can zoom in here. So this is the overmap in this valley, bisected by this river. We have essentially these sort of feudal lordships, feudal lord. I don't know. I mean, they're kingdoms, but they're small. So each one is basically each one of these little kingdoms or queendoms, in my sense, because they're all run by queens, is one city and some surrounding villages, one city surrounding villages, and they all basically have maybe around a hex, a couple of hexes of land to them, and they sort of fill in the valley. And then, you know, mountains, forests, some hills, we got some caves, we got some ruins, and we've come up with some pretty good backstory-ish stuff. If you go back into those streams, if you're interested in some of the more world-buildingly things, obviously that's too big, but let's see if I select all of these. How much do I have to shrink it? How much do I have to shrink that to get? That's probably still pretty good. And I hate that it doesn't look very designy, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So I wanted to come up with a calendar. Maybe I should just put, I don't know. My impulse is to want to be more artistic with it as opposed to just these bleh boxes. But I'd have to then draw it out. I have to draw it out and do some other stuff, and I don't want to draw it out right now. I don't want to draw it out. But it would be nice to have something. So anyway, let me just see what 1 month looks like. So this is a week. 1, 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then for 28 days, I need 4 of these. Oh, yeah, it's going to be raining. It is going to be raining fierce soon. All right, let me see something real quick. I just want to see if I turn off. Oh, it's ugly. It's ugly. I don't want to get too wrapped up though in the artistic text. There's one. So here's the thing. I don't know with symbols, because the thing is, what you can do is you can grab things and make it a symbol, and then you can copy paste the symbol. But what I'm not sure about is if I wanted to have the number and the box as a symbol, if every time I change the number, it'd update all of them. I think it would. So I need to just do these by hand. If somebody knows, I'll need to do some digging around into the whys and wherefores of. I wonder though if I can. Are there some nicer? How about some thin? Oh, look at that. How about not an acrylic? What about something engraving? Nah. Now. What is that? Nope. What about, how about some inks? Nice. Maybe if I take off the, what does that look like? Maybe not so thick. Then maybe they would look a little bit. I kind of like that. Though maybe we. Is there something that's a little bit, let's go like that. No, I definitely like there's a little bit of texture now with these. Then I think I gotta. How do I change the fill? The stroke. Okay, stroke. What's 3.5 look like? That might be a little bit better. Hey, Terrence. Brian says, put a bunch of terrain in the oven. Oh, they just put a bunch of terrain in the oven. First time trying to make terrain with flocking on top and trying to dry it fast because they hate wait. What kind of, so is this ceramic terrain, Brian? I would love to do that stuff. And actually here, Studio B is where I could engage in more of that stuff if I had any of it, which I don't. Actually, no, I have mini. I guess I do not have terrain. I have minis basically from games and things. I don't have terrain. This is too big. You know what? Before I go through this whole exercise, do you guys find that a calendar would be helpful for a kind of micro setting like this, or not? Or would just a list of holidays and when they fall be worthwhile? I don't want to bother with something that isn't going to get any use. Is maybe how I'll put it. If nobody's going to use it, then I just as soon skip it. Because I have a generic calendar, but I don't list it out. I have it here. So I could very much steal, because it's pretty much going to be mostly this anyway. Having a calendar does imply that you need to track it. But my question is, from your standpoint, is that something that you want? Putting aside whatever implication it might have as a thing, would you actually want it? Or would you find it like, meh, I'm going to look at it once and then meh? That's really my question. So we're putting aside whatever it implies from my standpoint and more along the lines of, what do you guys want? I actually have the moon cycles. So in this zine, I got you covered with moon cycles already. So we got, because this is based on the moon. So it's a lunar calendar. So I got that already covered. I was going to kind of duplicate. Oh, no. Brian's oven was too hot. I was going to sort of duplicate this a bit. I probably could have actually taken this. Oh, you know what? I know, just one moon. Yep, just one. Just one moon. You need 3 moons. Yeah, it might be a couple moons. That's where I get into, it's as cool as it is. I don't want to keep track of the moons and what they mean. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to deal with that. Oh, that's that. Okay. I'm not trying to get that complicated. I'm going to take all these and I'm going to put it in there. Oh my gosh, I really organized the heck out of that. I'm not usually that good about organization. Our sun should be a black hole. Nice. Yeah, I really do dig. I wanted to do that again. I wanted you inside here, Lunar Months. I just want you at the bottom. I want the boxes. Oops. And you text should also be grouped together. I should say days. Days. And then boxes. I just want you. There we go. Noxious Bones says, my brother took a month to study moon cycles to create an elaborate religion culture with 4 different moons. Oh my gosh, definitely more work than I'm willing to do. Yeah, yes, and more work than I am willing to do as well. I like 1 moon. I think 1 moon is good. I think that, yeah, more than 1 moon. Just I see, that's part of my deal is I want things to be manageable. I want things to be manageable. So What I don't want is I don't want something to be so complicated that no one's going to use it, even if I use it. Because you're always going to find there's going to be someone out there who's got some really crazy system, but it works and they use it and it's great. But at the same time, I'm not trying to do that. I don't think you're centering it exactly where I want you to be centered. Are you? I don't know. The moon play a significant role in the setting. Well, the moon is when you know what's what. And so does it play a big role in the setting? I mean, we rolled up lycanthropes. So there's that. I just really, you know what? I guess, Brian Smith, it comes down to it. I really like the moon. I feel like the moon is often underutilized other than lycanthropes. So I like putting things on, kind of, sort of where you are, but in some ways by the solstices and the moons. It's kind of where you know what's what. So my hope a little bit is that you might use these things. But I'm not, it's nothing super, nothing super bad is going to happen if you don't. But like, I like to do things like I like to have things happen on the moon. Like look for the full moon, like when you're having a prophecy or something. It's coming with the next full moon. When does the festival? The festival's always on the new moon, and I don't know. I think it's flavorful. I like it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But no, nothing horrible. Nothing horrible is going to happen if you don't know the moon. Or maybe there is. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens? Who knows? I need to make these a little bit smaller. Um, 4x5. That's so big there, really? Oh, it's that one. Yeah, I mean, so okay, so let's go through the holidays that I've got. So first of all, I got the months, which are very basic. And I'm just using, I don't know if they'll have their own different months. These are the months that well, let me go back up and you can see what it looks like in the context. So I came up with some generic months, getting away from our months a bit, but they're very simple. It's just what season are you in, right? Are you in? It's basically you basically have first, high, and end, and I just go with winter's end is December, right? Winter's end would be more what, I don't know, March, whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. So you have first spring, high spring, spring's end, first summer, high summer, summer's end, first harvest, high harvest, harvest end, first winter, high winter, winter's end is basically where it goes. Or maybe winter's end would be January and February would be first spring. And then those are your months. And then the holidays I cobbled together from various sources, but basically Midwinter Festival. You have first of spring, a spring festival, spring equinox, Hocktide, first of summer. Hocktide is when your rents are due. It's literally tax day. That's when you got to pay your rents. First of summer, the summer's festival, solstices, harvests, so on and so forth. So this is just the generic one that I added for folks. The festival of nose boops, yak shaving day, all very good. So I want to add in some specific events, specific things, but I'm going to be building on what I already did, because the idea is that you can use everything in here together. So I want you to sort of building on what we already have. Night of the Boilermakers. Are we in North Carolina? Is that where no, that's the Tar Heels. Where are the Boilermakers? Is that Purdue? Which college team, which college university is the Boilermakers? Oh, Noxious Bones. So they use Moonlight as a currency. Well, that's pretty cool. It's a good fantasy thing that can go in very different directions. So interestingly, Noxious Bones, how does one use the Moonlight as a currency? Because that sounds really cool. If I could wrap my brain around it. All right, so 5 days. I need to. Do we have like a? I really like just where is an edit? Do we have an edit transform layer maybe? Layer arrange. Yes, we do have a layer transform. That's not what I mean. I want just a quick like 50%. How do we make it just 50% smaller, or is there one? Ooh, doesn't look like there is. Layer effects. What kind of layer effects do we have? Oh no, those are like blurs and things. No. Frederick says they usually require starlight for scroll making, as it justifies having a tall tower to get better reception, or for your radio. But that's cool. I like that. You have to use starlight. It means you got to do it at night too, which is cool. Terrence mentions Mooncoin as an undead cryptocurrency. Ha ha! To dum dum. Elves climb their trees to get better starlight. That's cool. It also means you probably want to get out of cities. I mean, even ancient cities, I'm sure, had light pollution. All good stuff. Okay, rotate shear. I don't care. This is all we got here to work with. I don't have a good percentage. No. No. And then no. Terrence says cities only have lousy goblin imitation starlight. Imitation starlight. That would be good if you had a. That'd actually be really good for. I was thinking of some kind of. Good for. I should probably move these around. What am I thinking of? If you had some kind of steampunk setting where everything's grimy and yet people still need like a Shadowrun kind of steampunky sort of thing, maybe more steampunky. So, maybe a Harry Potter-ish situation where you have these goblins who are creating fake starlight for wizards. Oh, so I forgot 20. What happened to 20? No. Get them all in position, and I'll monkey with them a bit. Noxious Bones says lots of old magic, quote unquote, is powered through moonlight. Some players have found that using mirrors, glass, and other reflections to move it, catch it, and collect it is a good way to find secret doors. Oh, I like that. So how would one, I'm gonna have to take some notes here. Now I'm intrigued here. So moonlight. Oh, shoot, how can I take some notes? I need a note. They don't have someone like just take a note, do they? No. Damn it, where's my notes? I don't think I have logseek on here. Oh, I don't. All right, hold on. I'll make a note of this. I like this idea of capturing. So you have a special medal, moonlight for secret doors. Man, that's. I like that a lot. Let me write this down before I forget. Might have to do something with that. Moonlight as an element can help reveal secret doors. How to capture. So how do they capture it? So how do you capture noxious bones? You have to. So is the moonlight does it become liquefied? I'm getting this sort of the Fellowship of the Ring, the scene with Galadriel and her little fountain or mirror thing. Yeah, I don't get the logic. Totally. Who cares about the logic of it? Yeah, it's magic stuff. I really dig it. I dig it a lot. Well, I'm just really curious about how it functions, because I think there's a neat idea in there. So first off, kudos to you, because it's a very cool idea. And I like the idea of it helping with things like secret doors, and potentially it could be spell components. That's another thing I like. So Brian Smith asking about, what does the moon do? Well, I think that it's, I guess, much like everything else we have in our games, if you have something out there that is, if somebody says to you, I'm going to do this is going to happen on Friday. Well, you can automatically go, okay, boom, I got this much time to do it, right? Gives a sense of when it's done. In in fantasy game, maybe you don't want to say Friday, or maybe you want to be a little bit more, I don't know, esoteric, because we're playing a fantasy game, and like Noxious Bone just said, hey, it's not logical, it's magic. And if you start embedding moon cycles or things like that in your games, then you can start to call it, then you can start to, use them in your games. And you could say, oh, the Cult of Orcus is doing this thing on the next full moon. And it's not like it can be more than just like, oh, let me ask the GM when's the next full moon is. It's like, well, you can know that, because it'll be sort of embedded in your system where it is. Oh, you know what? I goofed here. What did I do? I totally goofed. All right, so this 14 actually goes over here. 15 here. 13 rather. 12. 11. I was just throwing these things around and not thinking about where I was putting them. There we go. Now I have to shrink all these down, of course. Then I'll have a month. And then once I have 1 month, I can clone it for the other months. Do I want to turn to liquid? I think having it as a liquid would be cool. So here's an idea I had. And obviously, Noxious Bones, this is your original idea. Feel free to take it and run. If you had it, it would be, imagine you had something like, I don't know, like nitrogen, where you can have it as, it's a gas, but you can also condense it into a liquid. So liquid nitrogen, gas nitrogen, whatever, all used for different, they have different applications. But the idea here would be is that you could, in liquid form, obviously you could hold a lot more of it, though it's heavier, in a maybe easier to transport, I don't know what, than as light, which you can't really hold. So imagine you're able to have something like your metal or something, or perhaps a certain kind of mirror that you could bounce the light off of, and if you can reflect the light into something, it will liquefy it. Something like that. Then imagine that you had a lantern or some other device that you could put the liquid into, and then it would then essentially would, whatever mechanisms in the lantern is then able to turn it back into moonlight, so that you could be in some underground place that you could use your moon lantern, if you will, to give you a better chance at secret doors. Maybe it's less, maybe it shines a light that's it could let you see better, but is less detectable. Doesn't it? It's not as bright. Maybe it doesn't flicker. It gives a steady glow. Obviously, then you can have it as a ingredient in a spell or in a potion or anything else. What kind of creatures would you want to, would having moonlight in some form be repellent to or be attractive to? What happens if you had moonlight with you could shine a beam of moonlight on a lycanthrope, something like that? Noxious Bone says they like the idea of being condensed or concentrated and more valuable or heavier and worth more coins, and the idea of incorporating a lantern is awesome. Well, I'm glad you like it. Well, just the first thing I thought about, because when I think about, you can see secret doors and such, it seems to me that, well, where would that be really handy? Down in a dungeon. And what do you usually use in dungeons? You're usually using, a lantern of some description. So then why not why not use it? I want to try to make these the same. 0.465. I should probably just 4.6. Oh, that's the wrong one. I need to look at 28. Not 26. 0.262. And what size is the moon here? 0.226. And I'm just going to have to do this a bunch of times. But I don't have them. Oh, yeah. Getting back to my calendar. So those are the months of the year. Again, generic. Well, that doesn't actually work. I have to, hold on, I need to, no, not an artistic. It's regular text tool. There we go. You just zoom out. So then I have these high days. Oh, I did rattle off the high days before. Nothing mind blowing about them, but they're, I wanted to give folks a head start. But I want for the Valley, I want there to be, I want to give them some individual. I want them to have some individuality. Hey, RPG Grandma. So I thought I should have a calendar where I can write in some things. and then add some, have these just the more or less generic holidays, and then add some my own days. I thought that might be nice. It could be too much. I'm gonna see. I just want to get this month sorted, and then I can decide if I like it or not. Wish there was a way I could highlight a bunch of these at once. Can I? No, maybe it's best I don't. Sometimes you just got to do it. It's slower, but it's, what's that phrase? Slow and steady wins the race. RBG Grandma says calendars could be a nice touch. Well, I'd like to think so, but I want to be mindful of not wasting people's. And I have to get this to a particular, and I have to get it to a page count at some point. So I have all these wonderful ideas, and then sometimes I got to have something and then toss it away or save it for later. But I'd like to think they're useful. I think they add nice flavor too. At least that's my opinion. I had some other things I came up with. Let me see if I have them here written. Oh yeah, so a couple things. If we go to my map here, where. So one of the things I've done is I called this area down here the passes, and I have 2 passes listed here because I was always thinking about, well, how is this area connected to the wider world? And there are essentially 2 ways coming in. There's a big swamp here that's off the bottom here where you can see the swamp symbols are, called the Great Morass down here. And then there's the low pass and the high pass through here. And my notes are that the passes have been blocked. We talked about the Song of the Mountains, which has been causing tremors, earthquakes, and other things that has blocked. One of the first things that happened was it obstructed the passes. And then the other thing that's happened that seemingly be independent of that, but who knows, is that traffic. There used to be, some good kind of barge traffic through this Great Morass, but it's slowed down. It's virtually stopped. And that because part of the timeline here for where the setting essentially, all other things I'm preparing, and then I'm, leaving it at kind of, okay, now you tell your stories, is that this is an area that's been in decline a bit. And that no one, the lionesses, the queens that rule in here have not been in a hurry to clear the passes. Obviously, people on the other side haven't been in a super big hurry to reconnect. And then the same thing for those folks. They've sort of become provincial in certain ways. So I guess part of the reason why I wanted to explain that a little bit is I always like to know, like, if an area is a backwater, or if it's why is it the way it is? Like, oh, okay, why, okay, the keeps on the, like, the keep being on the borderlands. Maybe you ask yourself, well, why are these borderlands? Okay, maybe it makes sense. It's monstrous out there, and this is as far as humanity or whatever the cultured folks, whatever you want to call them, could push. As far as these cultures anyway could push against the wilds. Fair enough. Okay, and I'm not really using that trope. So when we talk about, well, why is this place kind of isolated? It's more or less some kind of natural or maybe unnatural events coupled with just kind of a decline. It's just they don't have. I think one thing that's happened between so if we go back in the history here, I'm just going to repeat it in case folks are watching this who didn't watch other things. This was at one point, this was unified. This was one kingdom in this valley. Bad things happen. Old king is dying. It was a patriarchy, but he has no heirs. His heirs are gone. His 2 male sons are gone. He has 7 daughters. He has 7 cities. So he splits it up between all the daughters, or 6 or 7, whatever it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7. Splits it up between his $7. So then it goes from being one kingdom, now it's 7 smaller petty kingdoms, smaller kingdoms, whatever you want to call it. And then things have gone on from there. And I think the lack of a unified voice, unified force of some kind has led to a lot of introspection, looking within, plotting amongst each other, and just the outside world sort of fading from view. Because if you're one of these towns or one of these kingdoms, you're probably more likely to be thinking about, well, what are your neighbors doing? You might not even want to have any dealings with the outside world, because you definitely don't want anything from the outside making it worse, or you don't want to look weak to the outside world. So isolating yourself from that, maybe thinking, well, it's not going to be permanent, but I just need to, that old saying, well, I need to get my house in order before I do something else. Like the valley's kind of got to get settled before I start worrying about the outside. But the valley hasn't gotten settled. It's been in this, and things have happened. I imagine that there have been highs and lows, and sometimes maybe at one point somebody managed to get 1 or 2 under their control. So maybe they had 3, ends up falling apart. But over the span of years, they are at present time essentially where they were before, but with less energy, less impetus. They're kind of settled a little bit more. They're in a funk, I guess. They're in a funk, sort of thing. But I wanted to explain that. So I guess it's helping to solidify the sort of the some of the results of them being in this funk is that they've let some of their external connections wane, and there's nothing super valuable in this thing. It's not like, oh my, that's drawing people in. There's not like, oh my gosh, they've got fountains of dragon blood, so everyone's coming in. They don't have that. So the outside world, obviously, folks can determine it overall how they want to, but for the moment, anybody outside the world has seen fit to just kind of let them. And once this stuff drifts, it just takes a generation or 2 before people kind of forget. Trade over these passes. Maybe there are some towns that are out here, but then the towns kind of, maybe their father's father remembers something, but like, now either these kind of wash away or something else happens. They go on about their business. And they just kind of like, didn't there used to be some folks over there? Like, oh yeah, they, whatever. Haven't heard from them in ages. Who knows what happened? Hey, Dungeon Slime. I never did. So Dungeon Slime asked if I had to keep my Dungeon 23 challenge. So I never did the Dungeon 23, but I did finish at 23, which is part of what I'm doing. I'm trying to finish. So I am in the process of finishing, because part of my thing with Dungeon 23 was that I didn't want to start something new, spend a year on it. So I recognize I had one. I don't know if the Dungeon 23 was ever going to work for me, but what I recognize is I got old business. Talk about, I got to get my house in order. I got old business I need to finish. And so I'm trying desperately to get through old business. So that I've been doing. It's been a struggle at times, but these streams have actually helped me get things done, and just they motivate me to do, and they motivate me to speak and talk about things, which helps get the slow gears of my brain churning, moving, grinding. Your grandma says they should have a secret the outside world doesn't know about. Could be good or bad, but something other states would kill over. Interesting. I don't know if I'm going to give them something like that at jump, because I kind of want this to be somewhat of a starter where you can put folks into. I think that could be definitely something that could be explored maybe down the line. I probably wouldn't seed that into here now, because I kind of want to seed. The idea here is that there's a lot in here, and that if you're a GM with a party and you wanted a setting, it's relatively small. It's going to be manageable. I want to give a lot of ingredients and then let you sort of you're going to make the soup. I'm not giving you an adventure with this, but hopefully I'm giving you stuff that you'll be able to make adventures and see the things. But part of that is I want it to be sort of in here, about everything sort of self-contained in here. So at the moment, I don't want to give you I don't want to pull you out, or I don't want to put in something, outside. But I didn't want to address these things. If you're pulling this and you have a larger campaign setting and you want to drop this into, give you some pathways. Give you some pathways to do it. Yes, Dungeon Slime says right. A sandbox. A sandbox is exactly right. So I want to try to not put something in here that's all of a sudden going to drive the party out or drive external things in, because I want you to be able to play kind of self-contained in here. But I could definitely see down the line, if because my idea with this is that this isn't the first or last thing I'm going to do with this. I'm going to keep developing this and working on this, and this will be this setting guide will get finished, and then I will do adventures, and I want to do more stuff and add more bits, and there will at some point will be a need to want to bring in more space, bring in more hexes, bring in more outside things, and maybe at that point, as part of that, it would be great to have like a hook of, well, what makes this place important to this other place that we're talking about, and then totally something like it's something secret, whatever. But for right now, I want to keep the scope to the valley. Brian, you should figure out how to stream. It's not that difficult. The streaming part, the streaming part, the technical part of streaming is not very difficult. All the other stuff can be difficult. The actual streaming is not. Sorry for my yawn there. What was I doing? But I think that idea, RPG Grandma, is something I do want to keep in thinking about, because it's kind of like, I forget who mentioned the other day about kind of what do they, kind of what goods do they have? What do they trade each other? Those things are all good things to have in mind. And there's definitely going to be, I want to have something down the line about what's going on to connect things, but just not quite yet. But I do want to build up kind of a web of stuff between these queendoms, between these dens, as I'm calling them. I definitely want them to have some good connective tissue. Two, 6. It's easy if a simple little slime can manage. It's really warning. It is, Brian Smith. And Brian Smith, I'm happy to you can message me offline. I can try to help. But really, it's, I mean, I don't know what kind of thing what your system you're running, but it really is fairly inconsequential to stream, especially if you're streaming something like this. Things get more complicated when you're trying to stream, stuff on Steam and games and things that are, you get into how much your how powerful or not your PC is, and so on and so forth. But if we're just talking, you're essentially streaming, I don't know, whatever kind of maybe Photoshop or something would be taxing. I'm not sure. But it's not too tough. Even my old laptop here, it's warm, but it's not brutally hot. And if it can do this, I feel like, now granted, this was a gaming laptop back in the day when it was new, so it's not super crappy, but RPG Grandma says, economy-wise, they might have been known for resources that are now not in demand for them or tapped out. This would lead to a loss of jobs, wealth, stagnation of society. Yeah, I think RPG Grandma, all you're saying is good. I think they have enough reasons for they have plenty of stagnating elements going on. That would certainly be one. But I think at least in the way I was figuring it is these were not major sources of income anyway, but it was kind of like there used to be this traffic, sort of little import export action, but it wasn't, this was not a trade powerhouse. We're not talking about like the Empire of Phoenicia, which was just based on trade, has gone south. That's not what we're talking about here. So for me, it is in terms relative to the impacts of other things that are going on. It hasn't been a huge, whoops, did I do something? Yes, I did. Hasn't been a huge deal for them. In other circumstances, it totally could. At the moment for these guys, they got other things going on. They got worse things than that. Not to say that some individuals didn't feel some hardships from it. They did. But overall, it hasn't been a big deal. And in fact, like I said, given the internal pressures and jockeying around and positioning and things, I think some of the people here, at least the folks in charge, are probably like, this is what we need. We need some quiet time. We're being left alone so we can settle up and fight amongst ourselves or do whatever we need to do without being interfered with. Oh yeah, OBS in terms of streaming software, as Dungeon Slime and Ian are talking with Brian in the chat. OBS is great. I don't know if depending on your laptop, I've had issues with it running on my laptop. But I think that's just because I'm asking too much of it. I'm overtaxing my laptop. I don't know that it's OBS. Lots of people use OBS. It's very well known. It's very well supported. As Ian says, there's lots of great tutorials, and it's fairly easy to set up. It's not the best looking thing out there in terms of the UI, but it's pretty easy to set up and go. I've been using a thing called Melon. It's not the only one that does this. There are what's called Melon. Now it's from Streamlabs, which I didn't know when I bought the Forever license. And I know that people have had a lot of issues with Streamlabs. So I don't know that I would recommend it in that way, because I know that Streamlabs has been shady a little bit. But I will say that it's most of the time it's worked for me, and it's browser based. So all I have to do is feed it in, essentially in this case, a webcam. And then I'm just sharing. I have two screens set up here, and I'm just sharing one screen into Streamlabs, and I've linked it up to all my accounts, and I just hit the button and it goes live. You could totally stream straight into YouTube if you wanted to. I think YouTube, you could even stream in with your just with your webcam. You don't even have to have OBS. I think you can just give it your webcam and go. If you're drawing and you're using stuff for art, you probably, ideally you may want to figure out a setup so that people can see your iPad screen, whether that's just physically a webcam or something else that you tilt in such a way that it's looking down at your drawing service. Or I know some folks have it where they'll have some kind of output port like the USB-C, or depending on your iPad version, Lightning or USB-C, that has some kind of HDMI output that you can then feed in. Like it can get really complicated, but ultimately you just need some way of looking at what you're doing that you could share. Like, here I just have it again. I'm showing on a screen and then go. But I think, Brian Smith, your stuff is really good, and I think it would be really good to share it. I mean, if you're, it seems like you I always say if you want to, and it seems like you might want to. So just, it's going to be to me, the biggest thing with streaming is just that slog of you're streaming and nobody's there, and there's just no way around it. You just kind of got to do it. 225, and there's just nothing one can do about it. I mean, that's not totally true. If you have a following from elsewhere, you can. I started from zero, so I didn't have any. I had to pull myself up, pull myself up by my bootstraps all by myself. But you know, what I would say probably, I feel like the template. So the template that I would say if I was starting over now and I had the wherewithal to actually try to plan things, which I didn't. I wasn't just flying off the seat of my pants. I would try to do something. I don't know if this is totally similar, but I think, and obviously it's, you know, your degrees, whatever, but I think I would, one, have that sort of, not, I don't know if unique thing, but yeah, you have like this thing you're doing, which in your case, presumably is mostly about the art, but it doesn't have to be. I don't mean to, I'm not trying to box you in, but maybe you got the art, and then have some, I mean, goals isn't the right word, but maybe, I'm trying to think what your second thing would be, because I think having multiple avenues, I think is good. And I think this is something like, say, Questing Beast, right? They have multiple avenues at this point. They've got their newsletter, they've got the YouTube channel, and of course they have the stuff that they're creating, their own stuff. And I'm trying to slowly fumble my way towards something like that, so that I just think it helps. Like, you know, where can people find you? How can people get a hold of you? How can people discover you? Whatever, right? So like finding these different avenues, saying, okay, well, I've got the streaming part where I'm streaming, and then of course I'm drawing, but then maybe you also want to think about, what am I doing with these drawings? With done, is it just, for me, am I just drawing to draw, which could be fine. Lots of people do painting channels just to paint, but I think in terms of, I often think about, well, it'd be great if I was working towards something I could put out there in the world. Like, I'm working on this is going to go out into the world, and then we'll hopefully expand and do whatever. And then not only is awareness of that, because people have been watching me here, hopefully some people will be interested enough that they may want to buy it down the line. At the same time, when this gets out in the world, people are then going to find my YouTube channel because they found this thing of mine. And so I think of like looking at like, oh, these different sort of almost like a circular thing feeding on itself. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, and I do not speak from a point of success on any of that. Ian says, at least you haven't spent absurd sums of money on equipment that basically gets used for Zoom calls. I have spent some money on equipment, but I am streaming, so I guess I got that going for you. And yeah, and I would definitely say is definitely try it. Spend the least amount. Don't, because it's a streaming equipment, just all the different things. It can be a huge money sink. So it's sound quality. I would say if you have to pick one thing, get your sound quality. And I know this from experience. I've definitely had my issues with sound quality. It's the really the first thing. I think if I was saying, if I had to go, if I could, I don't do it over again, because I actually did try to get. It wasn't so much that I hadn't bad sound quality. I didn't have a great understanding of it, and my understanding is not that great now, but it's better, and I have some tools that help with that, and the tools have gotten a lot better too. But definitely lean on sound more than video. I haven't seen Ian says sound is the most important thing and the easiest to screw up unless you're Dyson logos, I guess. Well, I haven't looked at any videos of his. Does he have amazing sound, or is he just messed up other things? Sound is definitely both the easiest. Oh, they just stream silently. I see. Yeah, well, one, I'm not drawing. If I was drawing, maybe I could do that, but I can't. I can't just. I can't do this in silence and hope that people want to see me or would want to watch. Maybe some people would. I don't know, but I'm guessing no. I'm guessing that's not going to work. Oh, I guess the other thing I should mention for folks who are here, and I'll post about it and it's coming, but tomorrow, I think it's going to be streamed. There's a chance that we're going to record it and not stream it. My feeling is it's going to be streamed. So if this doesn't, if you don't see it pop up either later tonight or tomorrow in the morning, then we've decided to record it. If we record it, then obviously it'll go up on the channel shortly thereafter. But I'm going to be running a live play of Cavalog Sanctuary, which is the Morkborg adventure that I'm working with the Dungeon Key to convert to Old School Essentials. We're running it tomorrow. I'm running it tomorrow night. It won't be the whole thing. You know, it'll be like I think a highlight or two from it. Be a few. Yeah, I think we're gonna start around. Let's see. I'm not sure what will, because there's gonna be some getting everybody online, making sure everyone's plugged in. Probably, I'm guessing that I would say 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern. 8 p.m. Eastern time will probably be we'll press the big red button, and it should be fun. Should be fun. I have not GM'd, certainly not live before, and I haven't even GM'd recorded on the channel before, so it'll be a first for me. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm excited. Should be fun. Daniel from Bandit's Keep will be on. The Dungeon Key will be on. I'll be on, and a couple other people. I think we're going to have 4. It's going to be 4 players, I think. Yeah, I think if everything goes according to Hoyle, 4 players plus me. So should be fun. And we'll be playing, Old School Essentials rules, because we want to, part of this is we want to show off the Old School's Essentials playing in the module. So we'll be running an Old School Essentials. They'll be using, for the most part, the classes that were the custom classes that were written that were in the adventure that we have converted or really in the process of. Anything you see in terms of the classes tomorrow, consider them beta versions. They're not finished. I mean, they're finished, I guess I would say, but they're going to be, this is version 0.1. I would say. So if you're around tomorrow night, hopefully you'll come by and check it out. Should be good. Daniel says he's a terrible player. He doesn't really love playing. I don't know if he's all the way serious or not. I'm sure, but he's so, he says he's a bad player. So we'll see if he tries to destroy the game. He's playing an interesting class too. I think, what did he choose? I'll just give you the name. He chose the let's see. He chose the Skin Bastard as his class. That's a creepy. All the classes are very, very, very flavorful in a Morkborg way. I'm interested to see how folks take to them as OSC classes. I don't know how well balanced they are, because I've been converting them on sort of a technical way, but in terms of how they're balanced against other OSC classes or against kind of your vanilla classes, I'm not sure. They definitely have a lot more going on than the classic classes do. But I think they're fun, at least. Whether they need to be, I need to go back and look at them and see in terms of like the XP requirements and XP thresholds and things like that, because I haven't really set those yet. I just kind of left them all. I wanted to get them all down and then come back and kind of look at them. I'm not sure. They might need to be pretty good, but I tried to add a little bit more balancing to them I think they're not concerned. Some of the power levels in Mork Borg, I think it's a more wiggle room, because I think for the most part, I know some folks have played really long Mork Borg campaigns, but I feel like for me, the sort of what I at least think of as sort of the sweet spot for Mork Borg is just where it fits in is kind of smaller things, so where the overall balance in terms of the world for these characters doesn't really matter as much because they're not made to last. And it's just they kind of they just in general they play loosey goosey. Like it seems like a component of the Mork Borg classes is basically random. You get random powers. You have X amount of powers available, or abilities, or skills, whatever you want to call them, and you just get them randomly. Similar, I think, in a way to what's it, the Glog kind of thing. Or at least, and maybe you don't have to do them randomly, but I think that say like roll and take one, and then it seems that the template for Mork Borg is okay. On the first level, you get one. The second level, you get another one, random, and then after that, you're just kind of your powers just sort of rotate. Like each level, you can swap out a power. You only have two, but you can swap them out over the whatever. Over the over how many times you level, I guess, until you max out or until you're dead or the adventure's over, whatever it is. So you just swap. So you might get two powers. You have your power at level 1, then at level 2. Not only do you get new power, you could swap out the first level power you got, roll for something else, or maybe pick. I'm sure GM's choice, ref's choice, whether you get to pick or roll, and then you do that. So it's a very different feel than what you get in an old school Essentials or BX game, where you have this steady growth, and it's not, maybe you didn't memorize a spell that day, but it's not that you totally lost that spell. And there are no spells in that sense in Mork Borg. They use scrolls, but in terms of abilities, as a thief, you would get climb walls and sneak, and then if you got the third level and you had climb walls and sneak, you could swap out one of those or something else, but then you would lose climb walls. So suddenly you're at third level, you decide to go with pickpocket and sneak, move silently basically, and then you would lose climb walls. And it's just a different way of doing it. So we're not keeping that. We're going to more of that smooth, sort of just steady growth that you get in old school Essentials. But it means that these guys will have at 8th level or whatever more powers than they would have had in Mork Borg, because in Mork Borg you would just have had 2, and all these powers are usually a bit more than you would get in vanilla BX or OSE. So it's interesting. Balance is overrated. Just look at the elf. This is true. I don't know if it's overrated, but the elf pays a steep price in XP. You got it. It can be slow going. An elf does have a lot of advantages, but an elf can be slow going. Whereas, I was in a campaign, I was playing a thief, and I had multiple levels on everybody. Well, not only did I not die, and everyone else died, so they were all starting over, but then it was just I was getting levels at a rate higher than they were. You can be sitting there as a low level elf for a while everyone else is kind of moving and grooving. But of course there are advantages. It's it's not I don't think it's balanced with super delicate, like looking at every nuance, but there is a kind of a balance there in its own way. They're trying. It's just different. But I think you need something, because I know in that game where I was playing a thief, I've probably mentioned this before, but that's okay. I was playing a game. So when I was playing a game, and I was playing a halfling thief. That was my character, and we had a near TPK. I was the sole survivor of this TPK, I was the only one who had any prior experience. We were playing a Labyrinth Lord with basically all the Labyrinth Lord with everything intermixed. So you could play the what do they call them? Advanced. Everything was in there. So so everyone else is making new. So I'm playing, and the other folks are making new characters. So I come back. Okay, so I'm this halfling thief, and this is I didn't roll very well on my stats, and then I was just trying to maximize what can I qualify for, what plays most into the strengths that I have, which weren't that great, and then so what can I do? So I went halfling, I went thief, so I could everything I could do. Great. When we get to these guys come in with new characters, one of the new guys decides to play a monk, and the GM had said basically anything from Labyrinth Lord Advanced was fair game, and don't worry about the prereqs. Just if you or having to qualify, basically you can just do it. This guy took a monk, and essentially the monk could do everything I could do, and then other stuff. And I did feel a little bit deflated, like because I had a niche. Now look at this guy come on with his monk. And I was like, man, I really scrapped together to get everything I could to get this halfling thief. And if I had known I could have just taken a monk, I probably would have, but I didn't know at the time when I made my first character that everything from the advanced book and whatever was allowed. And now this guy waltzes in and is like, okay, great. He's like, everything I can do and other things I can't do. I was like, swell. And it worked out okay. We didn't step on each other's toes too much, but it was a little bit like man, why does this other, why do you even have the thief class if you're going to have the monk class? Because especially if you're not going to do the prereqs. I have issues with those prerequisites, those requirements, because it ends up making, if you qualify for one of these, you already have good stats, and then you get like extra powers, so it just makes you even more powerful. So folks like me that have middling to low stats, it's kind of like you get screwed over twice. Okay, we already have low stats, so we're already, struggling there. And now we're going to get the weaker version of a class, whereas you, the genetically gifted, because you rolled, 16, 17, 17, 15, 18, whatever. Now you not only just get that, which is good enough, and then now you get even a better class. It was a little bit, the rich getting richer type situation. So I'll say all that to say, if there was one saving grace, and there wasn't any, was that the thief's experience requirements were a lot lower than the monks. So I could take solace in the fact that if I could hang around, as he would be level to level a better thief than I was, but I was 3 levels above. And so that was that. So that's kind of where I come in on the balancing kind of thing. Dungeon Slime says they find Morkborg doesn't scale very well. If you manage to get a couple level ups, then you have a lot of HP and it becomes far less deadly. I've only played a one shot in Morkborg. I've read the books and read the rules, read the book. I played at PAX East. I played a one shot and nobody died. But it was fun. I don't want to. I mean, I feel like you get in this thing where it's like, oh, it's Morkborg. It's supposed to be super deadly. Even OSR in general, ooh, it's deadly. And then you get to a game and like, nobody died. But I think. In terms of Morkborg, I think people just ran with it, had fun, and the circumstances just didn't. We just muddled our way through. I think I tend to think in OSR games you try to be more mindful of the fact you can die, so you play accordingly. I feel like people didn't play really carefully in Morkborg. I think we got lucky, and we just ended up having a sort of a grab bag of abilities that all worked together to help us survive. Let's see, 262. Never morked a Borg. I hear you, Brian. I hear you. Let's see. Ian says, I have that they have Pirate and Mork, but I have not played either. They all say you have to destroy the book at the end, though. Well, I'm not destroying the book. Thunder Slime says they're a Beck Me kind of guy if they want to do low fantasy, and if they only do the basic classes in OSC. But yes, the balance via XP is a good thing, and it makes sense in the world. Yeah, it does. It does. Let's see, 225. Yeah, I have to go back and reread Beck Me. I tend to like the simplicity of BX, and I love the rules compendium for just having as a great resource for all sorts of stuff. I have all the Beck Me books. I have the Beck Me boxes. But it doesn't draw me. I know there's the weird thing where I don't know if it was a typo or what, where they messed up the thief progression that stretches it out way too long. I just don't know that we needed. I'm fine to stop at 10. 10 levels, I really think is good. Or maybe I should say 10 meaningful levels, 9 to 10. And it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't always have to be 10, but 9 to 10 levels, maybe for certain classes, 11, somewhere that, let's call it 9 to 12. 9 to 12 levels of meaningful progression. And then that kind of incremental, if you're going to keep playing that person, you're going to get little incremental bits, but essentially you're done. I don't need 36 levels. I don't need 20 levels. You either end up having to make the levels, I just think, short, or it's just hard to stretch things out. Over 36 levels is a lot. I'm like, it was, for example, I'm going through these Morkborg classes and we're creating these tables for their skills. And I'm essentially using X and 6. I'm using percentile notation, but basically following an X and 6 type trajectory, right? So you have an ability, you're level 1, it's 1 and 6. Maybe depending on the ability, I have a couple different design patterns, maybe for sense I'm using for the progression. So you might end up at 5 out of 6 chances at the end, maybe 4 out of 6 chances if it's a kind of a stronger ability and I want there to be a higher chance of failure, whatnot. So over 10 levels, I can do, 3 levels at, 1 and, I can do, 1 and 6 for 2 levels, 2 and 6 for 2 levels, and so on. So you get 5 and 6 kind of at the end, or I could do it 3 levels. Like, I can't imagine stretching that over 36 levels. If I was going to have a meaningful progression over 36 levels, it's just slow. I feel like, or I got to just start coming, or it's like don't have enough stuff, or it's like, and now it's I like 10 levels more or less because you can kind of get something every level. Even a fighter, it's like, well, you're not getting anything, but you just get that +1. I mean, I really like the Lamentations fighter, so I like to give fighters, you're getting your attack bonus, your increases every level. You're getting that +1, so you're level 1, you're +1. At the level 10, you're +10. Boom, that's something. Okay, wizards, you're getting kind of one new spell, kind of going on something. Clerics, you sort of, deferred your one spell, but you've got stuff that's your turn is increasing kind of everything. Thieves get a nice little increase. I mean, if you're going to take that and say, okay, now we're doing over 36 levels, it's like, oh my gosh. It just seems like you're just stretching things thinly. Brian Smith says their first brush with old school play was Shadow Dark and nobody died until the end, the very end when they did. Well, listen, if you're going to die, dying at the end is when you want to do it, especially if it's just a one shot or something. You might as well die at the end. That is the perfect place to die. Thunder Slime says, without a doubt, Frequent said that OSR's deadliness is oversold. It is. I mean, there's always, the thing is it's oversold in that. Let me see how I can put this, because on paper, it is very deadly, right? On paper, you could roll up, depending on, of course, there's lots of people who house rule stuff. If you're playing, I've seen this come up, someone's playing, let's say, a wizard, and what do you got? D4 hit die, and you're rolling at first level, and you roll a 1. Now you were 1 hit away from death. Like there's and if you're playing otherwise, you're playing pretty much by the book. There's no death saves. There's no negative hit points. You hit 0, you're dead. You got 1 hit point. Well, not looking good for you. Of course not. But you can try to play smart. And generally speaking, I think the OSR games give you an angle to play smart. They give you an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to die today because I'm not going to get in combat today. Or if it looks like I'm getting in combat, I'm going to hide around a corner. I'm going to hide behind a wall. I've got my 1 spell. I'm presuming maybe, or I'm not going to presume, because I usually have, if you're rolling randomly for spells, maybe you get to choose. Maybe you get Charm Person. That's a great one, but it can be risky, but it can be great. Sleep is a great one for low levels. Obviously, magic missiles, no slouch. But you might have read languages. You might have detect magic. You might have something else where they're useful, super useful, but they're not going to help you. So you should be trying to avoid combat at all costs. And if combat comes to you, then you should be trying to dodge it at all costs. So on the one hand, it is deadly because you know that one hit, anyone touches you, they're not going to get less than 1 point. It's impossible to score less than a point of damage. So you're going to die if somebody hits you. That's it. They roll above your number, you die. But the system is built with a lot of mitigations. Not mechanical mitigations, but mitigations in terms of what you can play, what play is supposed to be engendered. That's supposed to allow you, a wizard. Hopefully you got high intelligence, which means you speak a lot of languages, which means maybe you can bargain with intelligent creatures that you come across. Hopefully you're smart and you realize we don't have to fight everything. Maybe we should fight nothing. And if we hear moaning and groaning and it's undead on the other side of the door, that we probably shouldn't open that door because they're the one things we can't bargain with, other than maybe slimes, a few exceptions. These are the things we can't talk to. Maybe we should try to get some hirelings and put them between me and danger, right? You have all these ways to mitigate it. Purple Druid says if using homes, first level magic users can make scrolls. They can, but I think it still costs money though, right? How much money does it cost to make a scroll? I'm not saying this to be flippant. I don't remember, because you probably need to at least delve a little bit to have enough money to come back and start making scrolls. And then, of course, if you have detect magic, or if you don't have an offensive spell to put on your scroll, sure, if you lucked out and you got one of those offensive spells and then you got some cash so you could roll up some scrolls, yeah, you could sit back and create some scrolls for you. But you probably have to do some delving around first. So, yeah, it does give you another weapon in your arsenal, but it's not which I think is good. It's not like, oh, problem solved, I got scrolls, but it does give you an option to give yourself a little bit of, build up some ammunition to use. Brian Smith says the concept of making it through with a low HP wizard and getting rewarded with a powerful spellcaster is cool, but are there any other incentives you can give a player who levels up against all odds? I mean, to me, Brian Smith, it's the story. It's the story. Like, to go back to my game, I'm playing this halfling thief. I was by far the weakest character in the game in terms of ability scores. I had nothing going on. Not even a good backstory. I had the least of all worlds. Hey, RPG Grandma, see you later. Thanks for hanging out. I had the least of everything going on, but I persevered and I survived, and that became his story, that he was a survivor, and that was a point of pride for me. One, it was just good because it reinforced, as the person who was coming in is like, well, I'm the veteran in this thing. It was nice to not be the first one to die, and persevere in that story. And that story was, I think, powerful and meaningful. And like, look, this guy with 2 hit points, lowly thief, nothing going on. He made it. I mean, that to me is to me, it almost goes back to that gaminess of it, right? Okay, what's the gaming parts of it? Part of that, the gaming parts is like, look at this cool thing we did. Like, look when I had one thing and I made it through. Like that, like this guy, like he was like, he's a bit of a little bit of a legend in his own way for doing that. And I didn't need some other kind of incentive on top of that. Having survived it, to tell the tale. I mean, gosh, this wasn't that recent, and I've told the story a number of times. Why, and that's it. This is a tale. He's going to be in the pantheon of characters that I've had that they can do it. I don't. If I gained some little trinket, like here's a participation trophy, it wouldn't have made it any better. I almost would have thought like a little bit cheap. I might almost like, what did you plan this? So you give me some crappy trophy, Like, why do you go back and play a video game that you've beaten already and go play like the hardest, why do you pick the hardest difficulty mode of the game you're playing to go back and play? I do feel like there's a bit of this, do you have that kind of, drive, to go and do it? I don't think and I don't know that we need to say more. I think it also gets in a bad. I will say too that I think you get in a bad. It starts a bad habit when you're handing out rewards to people, because ultimately, and I've said this before too. Maybe this is the stream of saying the things that I've said before. Playing the game should be fun in its own right. Why do you play the game? To have fun. Why do we play this game? Because it is fun. And if the game is fun, I don't need to incentivize you coming and playing. You're coming and playing because it's fun. It's not fun because I'm giving you candy at the end of it. I like to play. I'm going to, on Thursday when I play in Daniel's game, I'm playing it because I want to play because it's fun. I'm not playing in it because I feel like I'm going to get some Pavlovian reward out of showing up and doing something. So I don't want to. I don't think it's wise. I say for myself to set up these relationships where you feel like you feel like you need to reward players for playing, and players feeling like they are due some kind of reward for playing. I'm running the game because I enjoy running the game. I hope you're playing the game because you enjoy playing the game. And if you have to look at it and say, well, you have an extra challenge, to me, it's, as a player, I'm like, I want to embrace that challenge. To me, if I get the 2 HP magic user, it's not me begging the DM, oh, can you get me a ring of protection because I only have 2 HP? Or, oh, can I do this? I'm like, hell no. It's like, I'm going to try to live. And if I go down to the first arrow or rock or sharp stick that gets thrust at me, then so be it. I only had 2 HP. It's like, I'm a little bit off the hook. Like, if this guy lives, I only had 2 HP. So that's, I'm just going to say that I was balling out there. And if I die, like, well, this guy was never going to live anyway. He only had 2 HP. That's kind of where I come out on it. All right, Dungeon Slime. Well, enjoy your slime bath and your sleep. Let's see. Purple Druid said a magic user doesn't have to buy weapons or armor, so he should have extra gold to hire men at arms. He might. Though, I mean, your magic users do buy some, maybe not armor, but weapons. I mean, I used to carry around a staff and something. Granted, not a lot, but he also, I know I've seen it where the magic users, some of the folks who don't have a need for a bunch of gold, also might get commandeered by the fighter so that he can get his full plate or something, right? Get that good armor up front. But sure, you can definitely, having hirelings or something else you can have with you. I mean, and the other thing too, though, right, is gold is random. So you might end up with enough gold. You might end up with not enough gold. Brian Smith says, I don't think that desire for a challenge is highlighted or supported in the 5e crowd. So it's almost like a foreign concept that there's a reward, i.e. great story, and getting a suboptimal dude. This is true. Well, the thing is that I can, part of it is that when you get to 5th edition and you get to once you get out of, you're getting to point buy, okay? And you get into things like, we're all going to start with 6 hit points. We're all going to have point buy. Then that changes what it means to have a suboptimal dude. And this comes up in the 5th edition, right? The folks who kind of want to play a suboptimal person, and the other people who are saying, why the heck are you doing a suboptimal person? Because you're just putting more pressure on me and whatever, right? It's not cool. Not cool for the group for you to just play suboptimal because you want to, because you don't have to. We got arrays or point buys that should give you basically what you need, the minimums to kind of play what you want. So once you get to that point where you're not relying on the dice for your starting attributes, things like that, then suboptimal, it changes its meaning a little bit. It doesn't change its meaning so much as, it's one thing if you're suboptimal because the dice just weren't kind to you. That's the thing I like about the dice, I guess. It's one reason why I like dice. If you have a suboptimal guy, and look, you could end up in, say, 3.5 using arrays, ending up with a suboptimal person, because system mastery plays such a large outsized role in the 3.x style system that you could start off with a guy who's standard array and is set up, okay, I put my best stats and the best, I put the highest stats and the spots I need to be and this and that. And then you can end up through your class progression and your feat choices into these dead ends that you end up being in a suboptimal spot where you didn't start off there. And that's a whole other thing, right? Because that's kind of to me, that's the system failing you, or it's engaging you with these things, but they're kind of a lie. They're dead ends. Oh, this seems fun. We've created these abilities for you, but if you follow this chain of abilities, by the time you get to this level, everyone else is going to be, you're going to stink compared to everybody else. You're just not going to know it until it's way too late. There's sort of that, right? So that kind of sub-optimization. When you get to 5th edition, there's not really much of that left. I mean, yeah, you can make some choices, but it's kind of the suboptimal by choice. But when you have the dice doing it, then I think as a player, I don't feel like it's not a failing on my part that I didn't have any stats above 11. Like I can look at it and someone's gonna say like, "Hey man, you're thief. It's not the best thief you could be." It's like, well, what could I do, dude? I got my stats are 7, 7, 8, 11, 7, 9. Like, there's no optimal path for me. Even if I put my highest stat 11 number in whatever my best stat is, not even enough to get me a +1. Like there is no that's it. I'm suboptimal, but it's not my fault. I can free myself of responsibility because, hey, this is what the dice did. So now it's me. It's like, okay, well, the dice did this to me. And this kind of game in the game is, what can I do with this misshapen, poor person and do with them? And that's the challenge. Can I take this and survive and thrive? But I think when you get to 5th edition and it's like, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm going to put my stats in the wrong places. Haha. So here's a fighter who's got terrible strength, but he's got high wisdom and like, and then it's kind of like, well, I can, while I think that people should play whatever they want, I can also see where someone's going like, why are you doing this, dude? 5e is so predicated on this kind of balance issues. Why are you doing this? Because it's no longer, it's like, well, the dice did it. It's like, no, you did this. You did it. Why? So I get why the concepts is not the same. Now, in terms of the embracing the challenge, yeah, I think that's because we've gotten out of the gaming part of it a bit. At least some of the ways I think I'm a gaming, and into the more performative, story-driven aspects where it's not about it. Because I look at it like, why do you pick? You go to a fighting game, Street Fighter 2. Not Street Fighter 2. I'll go to Virtua Fighter 2. I played Street Fighter, but I like Virtua Fighter a lot, and I was pretty good at it. I was one of the better players at my local mall back in the day. I'll pat myself on the back. And there were characters that were harder to play, and there were characters that were easier to play. And you'd think, well, why would they do that? Why would anyone want to play the harder to play characters? Because that's a challenge. The challenge is, this guy's harder to play, but if you can pull it off, then you're like saying something about yourself. You're saying, I'm good at this game because I can take this character that's hard and tough, and I can still beat somebody who's playing the easy guy with the superpower moves that are really, like I can do that. That's that challenge. And I think that because of the focus with 5th edition on the story part and these other parts, that this ideas of like, just take up the challenge as a game. Say like, man, you could put me in a bad spot. As a game, I'm gonna beat it because like that's like, that's a kind of a victory there. They don't talk about that it does. You're right. It does not. It's not emphasized at all. So it's different. Ian says that 3.5 needed a respec mechanics. It really did. It really did. Ian said their first wizard died climbing down the rope in the dungeon. I can see that. Brian Smith said they had a sickly spellcaster who died jumping a 5-foot pit. Oh. Brian also says, I don't really like to try to mitigate the chance aspect of the game. Don't want to make the dice gods angry. I mean, in 5th edition, and I've made videos. I made a video. I should probably remake some of these videos because they're older, and I don't know, but I think I made a video. It's called "The Dice Are Not Your Friends," and really not. I mean, especially from an old school standpoint, you want to avoid the dice like the plague. I'm always trying to get, well, how much can I do before someone's going to tell me I got to roll dice? And if they're telling me I have to roll dice, in a way I failed. Because as soon as you are rolling dice, now I have this chance of something horrific happening. You know, because there's always a flat 5% chance that 20-sided die is going to roll a 1. And then I know, well, skills shouldn't have this or this shouldn't have that, but a lot of GMs play with ones being meaningful and all this is that. And even if they don't, then there's a chance I could fail. Whereas as long as I keep talking, I'm kind of succeeding. You know, how far can I get before the GM's going to go, you've taken a step too far? Because as long as I'm talking, making progress, I'm succeeding. I'm not rolling the dice. As soon as somebody says, well, you got to roll the dice, bad chance of bad things happening. But in 5th edition, people want to roll the dice. I mean, it's a thing where you're going like, ooh, I want to make this die roll. And it's like, I want to make an insight check. It's like, do you? Because then what if you roll really crap on the insight check? Why don't you want to just keep working? You're working. But it's a different mindset. Different mindset a little bit. I was watching the Acquisitions Incorporated C-Team stream a little bit. They had a reunion episode. I guess they're going to be doing more of the Acquisitions Incorporated C-Team. And at one point, I forget which player it was, you know, pretty much just, and actually a couple of them did, where they were just asking to make rolls. Ooh, can I, you know, the unasked for by the GM. We're like, ooh, can I make a roll? And it's like, and I think even him a little bit was like, I guess, you know, but it's like you can probably just get the answer or do whatever, and then you're not risking the wrong thing because you haven't rolled the dice. You haven't risked calamity. But it's definitely a different mindset. For sure. 262. But I'm curious how the Shadow Dark stuff's going to go. Once it really gets out there. And I guess I say that because for all the hold on, let me just write this number. So one of the things that's, and you know, I think I mentioned a couple times where I was at PAX East and PAX Unplugged, and I just was bummed out and maybe disappointed that, or just I never see a Pathfinder presence or Pathfinder 2. I'm just lumping them all together because I didn't see Pathfinder 1, I didn't see Pathfinder 2, and I was PAX East this last time. I was kind of looking for it because the OGL stuff this is kind of when it was all first bubbling up, and I'm thinking, oh man, when the Pathfinder bros are they going to show up and start, you know, where all these, because at the time people were saying, you know, I was always, oh, play Pathfinder 2, go to Pathfinder 2. And I wasn't seeing it in terms of going to the con and looking at people playing games. I didn't see any Pathfinder. So I felt a little bit, not bait and switch, but, you know, whoops, I got 2 of these here. I guess I do. A little bit kind of bait and switchy sort of thing happening. Just, you know, where's all the Pathfinder business? And I haven't noticed. Now, granted, I haven't been to a lot of cons, and please, if somebody's out there with actual since PAX East, so it's been a while, but certainly there was a little bit of time when I was on YouTube where I was getting surfaced to me that I was seeing more Pathfinder 2, you know, those videos. I'm switching to Pathfinder 2. So should you videos. And hey, look, I'm not trying to be a Wizards apologist. So great. But those videos kind of seemed to die down. And I'm not seeing them anymore. And I know that I had read or I heard people say that, well, you know, Pathfinder sold more books. They sold all these books. They're the books and they've sold through all this inventory and it's going to be glorious. And maybe out there in the world, outside of the internet bubble, a whole lot more people are playing Pathfinder 2. Can't say. But usually the trend, you know, usually kind of see the trend here too, and I'm not seeing it. So I say all that. I'm not really trying to bag. I'm not trying to bag on Pathfinder at all. But I say all that. I say all of that because I wonder with some of these things like Shadow Dark, they've sold a bunch of these books, but is it going to stick? is it going to get a bunch of people to change? Or not to say to get a bunch of people to change. Is it going to get the adoption? So that she sold all the books, she sold all these books, which is great. But people buy a lot of books. Especially in the OSR sphere, I think we can all say as OSR folks how many books we buy. And then how many of those we're actually playing, as opposed to we look at, they're cute, they're fun, they got an idea that we find interesting, but in terms of actually going and saying, this is my new system, doesn't happen. I'm curious if that happened with Pathfinder 2 a bit, that a bunch of people went and bought the books. Maybe they bought those core books, read them, liked them or didn't like them, maybe read them and said, this is not really what I want, and went back to 5th edition. I don't know. Ian says he feels called out looking at his bookshelf. Right? There's all kinds of reasons for this to happen. And maybe this happened with Pathfinder 2 too, where you read the book, you have all the intentions, and when it comes down to it, fizzles. Right? It just doesn't happen. Or maybe you just take some concepts out of the book and you like it. And I wonder if that didn't happen with some of the folks who went from 5th edition, kind of, put their toes in the waters of Pathfinder 2, and for whatever reason, just decided to go back to 5th edition. Maybe even, not even that they're going to back to just full-throated support for Wizards of the Coast, but just, I got all these 5th edition books. I like it. I read Pathfinder. I didn't love it so much, so I'll keep the book, and I'm just going to keep going 5th edition. That kind of thing. I'm wondering what's going to happen with Shadow Dark. Interestingly, too, I followed a little bit of the, I did Candela Obscura on the channel a little while back, did a read-through of that. And so I've been interested after doing the read-through that there's an actual play that they're doing on Critical Role. So I've followed that a little bit. And, I'm not a Critical Role, I'm not a critter. Every once in a while, if I'm flipping channels and I'm by myself, or flipping channels, if I'm flipping around, because I'll go to YouTube and I'll just sort of fiddle around. Sometimes I'll watch the stream for a little bit if they're on live, or even if it's recorded, just to kind of see. I'm always like, is this the one that's am I gonna get hooked? Finally see what it's all about and get hooked and watch. And it doesn't really happen, but sometimes there's something interesting, and I like to at least give it a look every once in a while. I'm not big at watching the actual plays in general, but if I've got sort of an interest, and Critical Role as a phenomenon is an interest, I'll check it out. So I've checked out I watched some of the first episode of Candela Obscura, and I watched the second one, and then Critical Role was playing the other night. It was whatever night they're streaming live, and I checked it out. I was like, oh yeah, was there more Candela Obscura? And I went to their page, and I was looking, and the page has the view count numbers, and it was interesting. Maybe it's not interesting, but I'll share with them basically with you, and then you can weigh in and see if this is interesting or not, or just as it should be. So when the Candela Obscura episode 1, has about the same, a little bit higher view count as the Critical Role, their regular, what are they calling it? Hells, or whatever their current campaign, current episode that came out at the same time as Candela Obscura number 1. That episode and the Candela Obscura, the first session, are about the same number. Actually, the Candela Obscura is a little bit higher, but it's, you could just call it even. So, okay, so what does that tell me, right? This is, people are intrigued by Candela Obscura. It's new. It's different. It's, I think there's a lot of reasons why people probably looked at that like, oh, I'm really curious as to how this is gonna pan out. Fast forward to the second episode, comparing it to the episode of the regular campaign that it's up against, and it's like half. It's down a lot. Ian says, is that Twitch and YouTube? No, I'm just looking at the YouTube numbers, Ian. So it's I'm really not interested in the exact numbers so much as the relativity. Let me see. Hold on, let me pull it up. I can actually pull it up. And let's see if I can get, let's see, Critical Role. I'm more interested in the relative part, not so much the So maybe the Twitch crowd is highly different. Ian says the first episodes are always the highest by far. Yes, I agree. But here it is. So Candela Obscura episode 1 did about 900,000 views. It looks like it's gone up a bit. So, well, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit different than I showed. 900,000 views. It's a month ago. These are not exact a month, right? About a month. The episode of campaign 3, episode 61, came out about the same time. Did 817,000 views. So it did slightly, so this did a bit more. Not a huge amount more. And different episodes have done, whatever. So, okay, so that's good. But now you get to, so then we go to episode 2 of Candela Obscura, and it did, remember, the first episode, 900,000 views. Episode 2 did only 200,000 views. It's half of what episode 65 of campaign 3 did, even though it has a 4-day head start. So it did 200,000 views. 4 days later, campaign 3, episode 65 comes out, has done that one did 4 days later, did 500,000 views. It's probably going to be passed by episode 66 that came out a day ago in probably a day. So, okay. So what am I going on about? I don't know. I agree that first episodes tend to do a lot better, bringing a lot more folks interested in the new one than the old one comes out. Well, here's what I'm wondering, okay? And it's not going to be the best bet. I guess whatever their fantasy system, I presume they're going to do an actual play about that one. That one probably be the one I'll be most interested in, because Candela Obscura it's a different niche. It's a lot of, right? It's a lot of different things going on. But I'm wondering about the gravitational pulls of these different products. Obviously, people love that main campaign of Critical Role. It would seem, it's early days, not nearly as many people love this sort of steampunk Cthulhu game. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just all there is to it. Maybe that's the answer. Hey, Todd, of course, Call of Cthulhu-ish sort of game doesn't have the same appeal as mainstream D&D. Hey, fair enough. Could be it. But it does make me wonder about things like Shadow Dark, about things like their fantasy game, about these other things that, even though they sold a bunch of books, even though there's, like with Pathfinder, all this buzz on the street of how many books they sold and they've set new records and everything, is it going to translate, or are people just end up falling back into whatever they've been playing already, whether it's an other OSR game, or whether it's D&D, whether it's whatever, because it doesn't seem like that just having like Critical Role presents this new thing and everyone just jumped on board. I mean, not even half. I mean, granted, a bunch of people watched that first one, but in terms of the now over the second episode, and we'll see what the third one does, but it's like, those people didn't stick. All those critters who came in eager to support, I guess, lasted not very long. Or did it draw, or was it not even the critters? Was it that people from outside who maybe not interested in Critical Role at all came and checked it out and didn't stick? I don't know. There's no way of knowing inside those numbers who was doing what. Okay. But it was interesting. And I guess I'll use that as a very clumsy segue. And I might do a video on this. I might not. It might be one of those things. I'll just talk about it now. And if you have to be in here, and it's just kind of luck of the draw if you're in here and you hear it. And if you don't, you don't. Reason to tune in to every stream, because you never know what I'm going to say. I watched Matt Colville's kind of intro. It's the first in this design series on their new tabletop RPG that they're making. I don't know what it's called. I don't know if they've named it yet. I don't know what it's called yet. But he did a video, and I'm glad that he made the video. It's nice for someone to come out talk about it. It doesn't get any. There's nothing mechanical in there yet, but it's basically setting up kind of design goals, right? What are these? He's got some keywords. And I think the keywords he mentions are tactical, cinematic, and fantasy. There might be one more. Tactical, cinematic, fantasy. I might be missing a word. Let me see if I can find the tactical, heroic, cinematic, fantasy. Those were his. And if you're interested in that, you should probably watch the video. I have to say it's probably not for me. I think that was my chief takeaway was it's probably not a game for me. I wish there was a little bit where I felt like he was kind of little digs at, I think, OSR style play, which that just bummed me out a little bit. Like, why you gotta take a hit, take a swing at it? I mean, I don't think he was really trying to be, and he kind of prefaced things, but there's a couple points where there's a little bit of, because there was some interesting stuff in there. I'd recommend you watching it if you're all interested in it. I don't think it's me. I feel like it's going to be, it seems like if you love 4th edition, I think he said that they're not, I know he really likes 4th edition. And he does mention in there that whatever the name of that last campaign that he had run, that they had posted, which was using 4th edition rules, I think it's spiritually, this is going to be this sort of similar gameplay, but I think dissimilar mechanics. Maybe how you get there is not the same, but similar gameplay. But I feel like, however you want to call it, big spiritual influence, and who knows mechanically what the influences of 4th edition is going to be there. And I enjoyed my time with 4th edition. But I don't think if I was looking for what's my next game going to be, I don't think that's where I would be heading. Ian says they watch James Introcaso's dev streams and they say how much they love dungeons and crawling games, but this is heroic fantasy, not dungeon crawling fantasy. Yes. Did he, Ian, is he working on is he partnered with MCDM? And that's something that they mentioned. He mentions that Colville mentions that this is not a dungeon crawling game. That it's interesting because there's some, I don't know. I mean, he's reading from a script. So one thing you could say about me, he's the lead designer. Okay. Colville's reading from a script, which means this is all prep. I'm not reading from a script. So I'm going to fumble about a bit. I'm going to say things in the wrong way. I'm going to make goofs, but they're reading from a script. So presumably they can tailor it. The messaging should be fairly clear and consistent, and you should be assured that they're saying precisely what they want to say. I mean, it's always a danger when you're kind of talking off the top of your head is that you might end the video and realize you didn't really say the thing that you most wanted to say, and then you either just let it stand or then you just go back and say, shoot, I got to re-record it because I didn't say the thing that I really wanted to say because I got caught up in something else that got off my mind. So he's going on the list of, okay, let's go through these keys. Let's go through these keywords. I think first he did heroic, which I thought made sense. It seemed fairly standard. This is not a game that is really not that you can't play bad guys in the game. And he mentioned that some of his campaigns, the characters they played have been not altogether good or gray or maybe even kind of villainous, but that the core assumption is especially to start, is you're playing a heroic character. And this is where one of the first digs he takes is like, when you're playing heroic characters, we're not doing XP for gold. Like greed is not what you're after. And actually, I wouldn't say it's a dig. I'd have to watch it again to pull up the things I thought he was poking a little bit, but you're not motivated by greed. You're motivated by doing good, essentially. So that's the heroic part. So, okay, easy peasy. Got that. Now in the cinematic part, mentioning that they're not interested in doing off-screen, the stuff talks about on-screen and off-screen, we're not interested in doing the things that are off-screen. And he has some weird examples for me in the tactical part, so he's talking about cinematic and then he's going to be talking about tactical. And I don't remember which order he goes in. I feel like he does cinematic and then tactical, but if it's reversed, Ian, it's not that. So Ian says he didn't seem negative on the OSR in the video. It's not that he was negative on the OSR, but I felt like he took some. I felt like there were some veiled little shots he took. Just the little ways he's saying. Just the little ways he's saying that. I'm nitpicking. It's not like I don't feel like he's anti OSR or anything, but I felt like he was definitely. And this is probably wise on their part, to be honest, is to differentiate himself, right? Because part of the thing in the cinematic is they're only interested in the stuff that you want to see on screen. Put that in quotes. They're not interested in encumbrance, or they're not interested in inventory management, right? These are uncinematic things, right? We're not interested in doing this stuff. And I felt like there was a little bit of maybe I'm just reading into it. Maybe I was maybe I'm being defensive, or just saying it a little bit. I felt there's a little bit of a smugness and like, well, we're not tracking. We're not tracking. We're not interested in tracking whatever. Did Indiana Jones track his bullets? Does Luke track this? It's like, okay, I got you. In any case, and Ian says they put that out there to say, if this is what you want, this isn't the game for you. I know, Ian, I'm not, I think it's a good thing in that, yeah, he is saying that, but I felt like, again, I might be reading more into it, might be feeling a little salty about it, but I felt like there was a little bit of in the manner of the presentation, I felt like it was a little attitude in there, but whatever. It's not a big deal. I don't hate the guy or anything. I don't know the guy. He's fine. So he says about, okay, we're not gonna talk about stuff that's off screen. Stuff like, like why doesn't anybody go pee in the movies or whatever? It's all off screen stuff. Why you never seen Indiana Jones load his gun? Okay, fine. Now I'll have more to say on that in a minute. But like whatever. Okay, yeah. Off screen stuff is gonna stay out there. We're gonna concentrate in the stuff, the cinematic stuff you want to be. Great. And then, but he also made a point of like, kind of in the, I think it's part of there's interplay of tactical, and I guess where I get a little bit, what Terrence says, weirdly, if I ran a game that didn't track ammo, I would want at least some rules in place for running out of ammo at dramatic moments. Yeah. I mean, maybe there is. Maybe they, who knows what they will have. So he talks about tactical stuff, which is like, movement's important, right? Tactics, where you are on the board, pieces. They talked about they're going to have a grid. The rules are assuming grid, right? This is not a either or, theater of the mind, whatever. It's like they're grid minis. They feel like that's important. And again, that's no problem. It's not generally the way I play it these days, but I don't, whatever. Great. I mean, at least they're open about it, and they're not making the game trying to, sort of winkingly say you need a grid without saying you need a grid. But then he said something like, well, either saying like cinematic usually means like hand waving away stuff, but we're not doing that. And it's like, but you are. But you are doing that. See, I wish I could try to find the spot where he says like, it means some people take cinematic to mean that we're hand waving a lot of stuff away, but we're not. It's like, yes, you are, because what is saying we're not going to deal with encumbrance. We're not going to deal with inventory. That's hand waving. You're hand waving it away. You can't say you're not when moments before you just said you were. Like you are hand waving stuff away, which is fine. But it was a weird thing to say, like, well, some people say cinematic would mean we're hand waving stuff away, and we're not. It's like, you are. You totally are hand waving stuff away. And then I just thought it was funny. His examples for the cinematic bit was Luke and, Indiana Jones, the ones I remember. And okay, so yes, Matt Colville, Indiana Jones does not count the bullets in his gun. How often does Indiana Jones fire his pistol in any of those movies? I mean, he probably doesn't the reason why he probably doesn't reload his pistol and say Raiders of the Lost Ark, because there's probably no time in that movie where he fires 6 shots. I mean, he probably fires the gun like 2. He shoots the swordsman in Cairo. That might be the only time he fires that gun. I don't know. But probably given the time skips and everything, there's probably no time where Indiana Jones is pinned down and is just shooting the gun, shooting, where your ammo might come in a doubt. So yeah, sure. He doesn't reload his ammo, I guess. but it's not like that's a key component, in a movie, in a thing. It's not a Die Hard movie where you might think that given his circumstances, he might be more, cognizant of ammunition. And Terrence, I think, points out about the dramatic moment. I think ammo really only comes into play when he's down to that last bullet. They're not tracking ammunition throughout the whole thing. But I think they do show him, there's scenes where he finds ammo, whatnot. But in any case, I thought that was weird. And then, bringing up Luke Skywalker, that was weird too, because those two movies, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, are not tactical. I would call them anti-tactical. I mean, the closest you get to tactics in Star Wars in terms of things positioning being important is when Obi-Wan tells Luke that, oh my gosh, this can't be sand people because it's too precise, right? It's the stormtroopers. They're they're super precise. I mean, that's the most precise they are in any of the movies. They turn into a goof squad soon afterwards. So it was weird to use these two movies, like Indiana Jones. What does Indiana Jones have to do with tactics or anything? Like those things are anti-tactical. So I thought that was, the choices were, I found them a little weird. But maybe I've just got he got me fired up a little bit. I don't know. I think there was nothing really substantive. I appreciate. So here I'm gonna get into what I liked about the video. Though I did say this before, I appreciate that he's laying out what the game is. He's telling you here's what the game is before I even get into going over how we're doing what we're doing or what we're doing. I'm going to give you kind of our design goals, which I think is good. I can appreciate that. I guess if you're on his Patreon or something, you'll get even more access to that stuff. Obviously, I'm not, but that's another access to that. And I appreciate that they're being transparent with what they're doing, that you get this insight into how they're doing it. And I'm still interested in it because I think I'm really interested ultimately in how a lot of these games that are okay, look, I think everything that happened in the OGL is not putting Wizards out of business. It's probably we're probably seen enough now to see that it's put a dent in their business. I'm sure there's some people who they've pissed off who are not going to be buying more stuff, but it's not the end of the. It's not it's not signaling the end for Wizards. Okay, I think we could probably say that at this point, unless there's some slower trickle effect that's going to steamroll into something bigger. But a lot of folks are putting out these are in the either have already put out a Shadow Dark or are in the process somewhere along the ways of putting out something that they hope is going to stand up as a D&D competitor. And I am very curious and I'm very interested in these different what do these systems are, how they're built, what angles they're taking. And having heard this stuff about Matt Colville's the MCDM system, I'm super curious because I don't know that. I guess look. I'm sure he knows more than I do about many, 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 many things. And I know that there's been, I feel like at least on the internet, this a reappraisals and some people who have really been evangelizing 4th edition lately that have been talking about all this stuff and kind of it's been ameliorating in people's minds for a little while. So I guess what I'm interested in is when I look at it and I would say, man, on the face of it. Oh, the other thing they talked about is their rules are looking like they're going to be super big. This looks like it's going to be a very crunchy system. They're talking about 800 pages or so of rules. That feels like a lot. And I don't know. I really am sincerely curious is this what people want. And I'm all for, hey, look, this is just what I want, right? I look, a lot of what I'm driven by is this is, I don't care. I don't know what people out there want. But this is what I want. I'm hoping that other people want this too. Again, totally valid way to go about it. And that might be it. Maybe. But I am really, really curious as to something that feels very 4th edition, something that is very tied down to grid and minis, though with all the digital stuff, maybe this isn't a big deal at all. And then it's going to be very crunchy. It seems like, anyway, very crunchy. And it seemed like from what he was saying, like lots of systems and subsystems, and you're going to have it all covered. It's going to be all there for you. And I forget, he mentioned that too, and I was kind of like, oh, that's also interesting, just the way he was phrasing about that, having the rules as opposed to something more rules light, where it was like, it seemed like this emphasis on having a rule for everything, as opposed to, say, the BX method, where it's we're gonna give you this, we're gonna tell you how you can adjudicate stuff, and it's gonna be kind of up to you how to do it, right? You know, oh, you can do it X and 6. Oh, you can roll under attribute. Oh, you can do percentile, and then it's like you pick the one that seems to work. It seems like he's coming from like, no, we're gonna give you everything. I mean, 800 pages worth of everything. So I'm very curious. About that. You know, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's they're taking their shot. It seems like I know the name James Introcaso. I don't know much about him. I don't know anything about him. Actually, wasn't he? I think was he someone that wrote for DM's Guild and then kind of moved up the ranks through writing stuff for 5th edition. That's the right person. I'm not sure if it is or not. I'm sure they know what they're doing. And look, I'm sure they know a lot more than me. It seems an interesting shot to take in this element. Terrence says 800 pages. Not looking for that. I'm not either. And I don't know. And I'm wondering who is looking for that. We'll see. We will see. Because at least with some things, you kind of get you know, one of the things I like about, not I like, but one of the things about if you're running, let's say you're invested in Shadow Dark or Old School Essentials or something adjacent to those, is that not only do you have that system and whatever's into that system, you kind of get either completely into, or you're close enough to kind of dip into the ecosystems that are around there. So if you're running Shadow Dark, presumably you've got your OSR adjacent, so you have all kinds of material. You probably are somewhat adjacent to 5th edition. I don't know. I haven't tried it to pull 5th edition stuff and maybe convert it in. By the way, I don't know. I think I want to feel like Shadow Dark is closer to OSR than it is to 5th edition in terms of creatures and things, but still, that's a big ecosystem of sort of, if you're, you know, BX style, AD&D style OSR, there's tons of material out there. So you got boatloads of stuff. OSE, same thing, right? You've got, you are either smack dab in the middle of, or you're adjacent to this burgeoning ecosystem that people are going to have material and stuff to play with. If you're going to this MCDM system, it seems like you're going to be completely in its own thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, lots of systems have their own thing. But there was a particular burden there, I think, because you were creating this ecosystem day one. And at least if it's an easy to comprehend system, and just because it's rules light doesn't mean it's easy to comprehend, and just because it's 800 pages doesn't mean it's hard to comprehend. We won't know until we see it. But if it has barriers in terms of managing that complexity as an individual GM trying to make things for your game, that might, you know, that might be problematic. But I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. Ian, if you're still here, are you interested? Are you, obviously you know about it, you know more than I do. Is this well, you said you were looking forward to it. Is it on your list? Is it, what's it called? Ian said it was called The Inevitable. If you're still here, Ian, I don't know if it's going to Kickstarter or whatever he's doing with it. Are you purchasing? Are you into The Inevitable, or are you just following it? Otherwise, I'm curious. Ooh, crack my fingers. I'm curious what folks Thinking about that. Well, I'm looking at it, and I've been going here for, wow, 2.5 hours. And I got a meeting with the Dungeon Key in about 2 hours or so. So I think I'm gonna call this a stream. We shall see. But it's neat. There's a lot going on. It's kind of cool. There's so much going on. I'm really interested in what the I'll be definitely following the development of the Inevitable, and I'm interested to see what the Critical Role fantasy system is. I'd love to know. This is the kind of stuff you'll never know. I'd love to know, like, are they happy with how Candela Obscura has been going, both the game itself and the actual play? Is it, they would never say it out loud, but is it, are they disappointed with the numbers? Is this what they expected? I don't know. Interesting times ahead, folks, but I got to go fetch some dinner. I'll return tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. And then, well, definitely tomorrow, if anything, in the evening, look for the official stream. But I believe we'll be streaming the live play tomorrow night. If we are just recording it, then it'll be on the channel sooner rather than later. Either way, game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.